Matt Falconer.
Hi.
Thank you for coming down.
You're welcome.
Ultra.
Good to be here.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's good. We've been trying to do this for about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Finally paired it up. You had your recovery from the TCR.
Kind of, yeah.
It's kind of my first question. Is it actually something you ever really recover from?
Well, I think the biggest mistake we never make is we never plan for the recovery.
Yeah.
You go out, you smash yourself to bits, and then you come home and it's like, okay, now what do I do?
Yeah.
But recovery-wise, I think, yeah, I'm recovered physically. I've got rid of the fatigue.
A few scars?
Sorry?
A few scars?
Yeah, I've got some scars on my knuckles from where I crashed on the very last descent.
We'll come on to that, yeah.
My toes, I had really bad kind of hot feet on the race, and my toes went numb. But my left one is the only one that's still kind of a bit of an issue. I never had any ulnar palsy or anything this year.
Really?
Just my feet.
Yeah.
Which, was enough to be complaining about.
And you mentioned this year, for those that don't know, I don't know if you've done the stats on this. Obviously, this was your third TCR.
Yeah.
Third in a row.
Yes.
I thought you'd missed a year, but you've done TCR 4, 5 and 6.
Yeah.
Increasing your placing from 12th to 5th to 2nd this year's event.
Yeah.
Totaling 32 days, 5 hours and 8 minutes cumulatively.
Which I spent a month on the road.
A month racing the road at TCR. 773 hours. Now, the reason I bring that stat up is because if you take a typical cyclist, and I looked at a few people's Stravas quickly, might do 8,000k a year, 5,000 miles a year. That's about 675 hours a year.
Yeah.
So you've done more than that racing in 32 days than a normal person does in a year.
Wow.
Which is quite cool.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Very cool.
I think that's really cool. There's been 3 TCRs. Do you feel the need to do any more?
I don't know. And it's a question I was asking myself at the end. Second place. First place was a day ahead.
Yeah.
Which is a long time, really. It's a whole 24 hours.
Yeah.
But I can see where I could make that time up with a bit of planning and preparation and a few different things, and just been a bit more kind of smarter about racing.
Yeah.
Whether I want to put myself through another year of training for it, taking the time off again.
Yeah.
And then doing the race and then recovering from it for 6-8 weeks afterwards again. That's probably the one question is do I really want to put myself through that again? And the cost of it as well. It's not a cheap endeavour.
No, sure.
I can kind of afford it, and I'm quite lucky with work. They're quite respectful about me taking time here or there. I'm using my holidays. I'm not taking extra time, but I'm kind of lucky in that respect. But
it leads me into a great question I was thinking of in preparation for this interview. There are, and I don't think you'd mind saying this, there are a golden ring of a couple of athletes that have gone and won these things over the last 5 or 6 years, right? And not just Transcontinental, but similar races. Yeah. And we know who they are, and they seem to stand out in the crowd. But are they beatable? What's it going to take to kind of get one of these guys? Obviously, you've got your strategy, but is that achievable, or are they just a different level above? They've got more time, or whatever it happens to be.
Well, so you've got the K-Man, the Terminator, Christoph.
Yeah.
I don't know. He is another level, but he is also another level at planning and preparing, and he has some time, etc. to plan and train for these things. But he's also pretty good at doing them as well, which obviously helps. James, again, he's an incredibly strong athlete, but he's also meticulous about planning. He'd be very hard to beat.
Yeah.
But at the same time, with all of these things on the road, pretty much anything can happen. To have come second this year was, in certain respects, fortunate because of some of the misfortunes of the athletes ahead. So Bjorn had lots of issues in rerouting in Bosnia, and even the last stretch to Greece, he took a road that was a little longer and so on. But it's you have to be lucky, but you also have to be able to plan and prepare. And
now, I remember something you said to me before you went. Your mindset was that you wanted to put pressure on the front group. So if they made a mistake, if they had something that went wrong, you were there to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
So you want to win the race, right? You're there to win. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, for sure. I didn't really believe I could win this year, but at the run up to the race, I had lots of people telling me, "Oh, my money's on Matt and this sort of thing," and I was really, I was like
sycophants.
But it wasn't until really the start that I kind of started thinking, well, maybe what if? And I mean, I found myself, after the first day in a pretty good position, not too far away from everyone. I thought, well, yeah, I kind of made some mistakes shortly after that of not sleeping and not eating enough. But yeah, with a bit of hindsight and taking those into consideration, there's definitely an opportunity to have a good go at the first place.
Yeah, sure. And of course, along the way, you taking advantage of other people not being in the right place, you didn't have it easy yourself. You had your own ups and downs along that journey. There was definite times where I remember watching on the tracker, you were just not where I know you wanted to be.
Yeah.
But I suppose for you, is it all just about being there to take advantage? If one of those golden ring boys aren't on their game, you're there snipping at their heels. Is that where you see yourself?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you always have to ride your own race. And the more you try and think about other people's races, the more you'll kind of probably suffer in your own race, and you might overreach and so on. So you kind of have to do your own thing and do what you know.
Yeah.
I think the way... So I had a few misfortunes, but probably the moment I lost the most time was in Austria, where I was kind of rerouting. I'd thrown my route out the window.
Yeah.
In Austria, and I was rerouting on the fly with my iPhone and following where everyone else has gone, and just trying to find the shortest path through the Austrian mountains. I got caught in a thunderstorm, and my iPhone cables stopped working, so I had nowhere to charge my iPhone, and then nowhere to know where I'm going, which is kind of key. So I took a bit of time to just dry out and just get my plan in order. So I knew what I was doing. I had a new route, recharged everything, so I had plenty of resilience and backup, and then pushed on from there. And that was really, I guess, the turning point. From there on in, I rode probably the strongest part of my race, for sure.
At that time, is there a constant voice just saying, just stop, just, pull up, don't worry about it?
Yes. It's kind of like you've got a couple of voices on each shoulder. Like one's telling you to, keep going, you have to keep the pressure on you, you're falling behind, what are you doing? And the other is like, well, why? So it is a bit of a battle internally of, why you're pushing yourself. And I guess I kind of reason when I am able to continue and there's nothing stopping me, keeping me moving, I kind of rationale, well, just keep moving. But if there's something wrong that may stop me, and you make a strategic call as to stop and fix it if you have to, and because you can save so much more time by just stopping, taking stock, regrouping, and then going again.
And is that kind of constant thought? Is it time? And I want to compare it back to, you've done a bit of shorter format racing in this year.
Yeah.
A few crits. I assume mainly to wind people up and have a laugh. But there are times in those when you're kicking on and you're tired, your legs are heavy, you could just sit up and it's all over in a few minutes.
Yeah.
Is the big difference with the TCR that it's such a grander scale, so much more time is involved, and the investment side of how you get yourself there?
I think one of the kind of key traits that helps me is just kind of sheer bloody mindedness. It's got a bit of stubbornness.
Yeah.
And I think that helped with the crits that I won, because they were in breakaways.
Yeah.
Just like not wanting to give up and just wanted to keep on it, and being kind of convinced that you're going to get through and make the break. And get to the finish. That is key when you're riding these things, like the TCR is to have that stubbornness to keep going. Right.
Now, when something goes wrong, you've already touched on it a little bit. Outside of the bike, there are 4 kind of main things that I can perceive that would go wrong. Your temperature management, so being too hot, too cold.
Yeah.
Water, food, navigation. Out of those, which is the most kind of frustrating when it goes wrong? Which are the hardest ones to recover from out of that group?
I think if you don't fuel enough, that's going to be pretty key. Because I mean, I had that problem this year. The second day, I didn't sleep enough as well, and I think that's probably a key one. Is if you don't sleep enough, you don't eat enough, you then won't have enough energy to pedal. And if you can't pedal, you're going to be super frustrated. You're going to be tired, and you'll slow down, and you may even start to think about scratching or something like that. So I think keeping fuel is pretty key, but sleep with that is quite important. I think you go through these kind of roller coaster of emotions in this race, and I think that's probably the mental side of it is probably a bigger kind of overarching thing of how you manage all of these things. So you have to know that you're in this kind of constant up and down ebb and flow of highs and lows.
Yeah.
You could be really high and then something will go drastically wrong and then you'll slam right down. You have to know that there'll be another up.
Yeah.
Always. So you can then work through the problem and then just keep kind of plugging on, if you like.
So is that a case of, despite if it's going well or something's going badly, you're having to concentrate to remind yourself that that's going to happen? That is part of the natural cycle. So are you always concentrating? Is that the kind of key drain on your mind?
Yeah, you try to keep that in the back of your mind. I mean, I don't know, my mind wanders all over the place on these things. Yeah. And I think that helps in a certain extent because you kind of take yourself away from it. But it's really important to remember that if shit's going wrong, like just have a nap, wake up. Yeah. Chances are it'll have fixed itself or some other opportunity will present itself to solve the problem.
Nice.
Going to sleep is a good one.
Yeah.
Now you're not tired anymore. Sort of thing. So.
Don't want to go into too much of the ins and outs, but how do you view your training? Are you counting miles? Are you counting overall time, effort, days consistently riding? What's valuable to you when you're approaching a training block for TCR?
I mean, there's a number of different things I want to try and achieve when I'm training. The main thing is just to improve my general overall fitness. This year, obviously, working with a power meter has helped me measure that much better, so I can see fitness improve. Also, the power FTP, and I think really that's probably the single most overriding factor for this race and any race is to improve your fitness. Yeah, I think the fitter you are, the better you'll be at recovery, the better you'll be at just managing physical problems and so on. So,
how much does general health come into it in terms of always make resilience to getting on well or make sure you're always slept, stuff like that? How much do you think about those kind of things?
Probably more, not enough. I think. And I've spent a bit of time, so I got a Fitbit this year to monitor my heart rate, my resting heart rate, to see when that goes up and down, monitor my sleep, make sure I'm getting enough sleep. I was using the MyFitnessPal to monitor what I'm eating to try and help me lose weight. I think that was a really key thing this year. Is I looked after myself at least for the first 4 months of the year, and then kind of went a bit wrong after that. That's another story, but it really helped for sure.
Do you see that as a big difference between the fifth place the year before and the second place this year? A good contributing factor?
For sure, it's gonna help. I mean, I don't think there was too much dissimilar between my last two races, other than a bit of good fortune and just knowing what to expect a bit better. I think, and the experience helps more than anything. It's massive. Yeah, and that fair to say you've got that experience now, right? Yeah. Flipping the other way round, where did you get into the ultra endurance side of the sport? What was your first steps before doing a TCR? How did you find yourself doing that? I'm really not sure. Someone suggested it, and I was like, "That's ridiculous."
Yeah,
like who could do that sort of distance? And then I started thinking about it. Actually, I mean, I've often wondered about, going bikepacking or traveling, across Europe. That would be like amazing. But to do it in 2 weeks, like a 2-week holiday to get across Europe, that really kind of appealed.
That's right.
I mean, I did a lot of kind of cycling challenges. I was always looking to do something a bit more. Yeah. And I did, the Tap to Tour, I did all these sportives, but it wasn't quite enough. And it was, it was just kind of a case of looking for something a bit extra. I'd never done an Audax before my first TCR. And
had you done much bike packing or wild camping and stuff like this to prepare?
Never wild camps. I rode to Paris a couple of times, like with panniers and stuff. A couple of times in 24 hours, and I generally really enjoyed it, but never proper bike packing, never completely, minimalistic and living in a bus stop and so on.
And there are a lot of guys that's their A-line strategy, right?
Yeah.
That's how they do their race.
Yeah.
Not you.
Not anymore.
I've
learned.
Yeah. Nice. And as we said, experience speaks everything. For people looking to get into that world, do you see there as being many barriers to doing it, or is it a case you just have to go and do it?
I mean, the biggest barrier you'll find is yourself, for sure. There are so many events out there now, short events as well that are much more accessible. But you've also got stuff like Audaxes and lots of long distance Audaxes out there. You also have a bike and some kit. You can also just go and ride it somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's at the end of the day, that's the heart of what you're doing, is you're just getting on a bike. And you don't need a race to do that. You can. It's kind of, I guess it helps getting somewhere fast in a race.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily see so much of what's going on around you. But yeah, you've got a bike, you've got some bags you can attach to it.
Yeah.
Anyone can go. So
most people have got a sleeping bag or a bin bag.
Yeah.
Find a bus stop.
Exactly.
Now, obviously, a functioning bike is useful.
Yes.
It helps the entire time. What happened on the final descent? That last few kilometres.
So last year on the final descent, final parkour, I got to the top of the hill. I saw Camille and Jacopo. They were the
photographers. Yeah.
And I went over to them to say hello, and I was messed up. I was really tired, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, how you doing?" And that, I mean, if I'd have put two and two together, I would have known that he was right behind me. The guy that was following just behind me was right behind me. I got to that, and obviously I was chatting to him, and then obviously he sails past.
So he was really close behind you.
Yeah, he was just behind me. So he sailed past. So I basically lost the place on the final climb coming into the finish. Now in the final results, it was irrelevant because he took some illegal roads, or there were some penalties applied, which meant that I got the place back.
Right.
And one more actually. But yeah, it's crazy how close the race can be. But on the final, having the final kind of parkour, having lost the place, it was like, oh my God.
That's amazing to think. So that year you'll have done 10 days, 20 hours and 31 minutes, and your next competitor was moments behind you after that length of time.
Yeah,
wow.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
But so this year, I came over the top of the climb, and it felt so much easier. I think the gearing on the bike was just much better suited. I've gone from a 32, originally a 36 last year, to a 32 in a crank, in a chain ring, which meant that I could just spin out. It was much easier. I got to the top, and it was like, oh, this is fine.
Yeah.
And I was like, thank God, I've done it. I've gone over the top without someone passing me. Now Bjorn was, I didn't know how far behind. I knew he was pretty close behind this year. And yeah, I was kind of glad I made it past him.
Yeah.
And then I was like, just kind of, I was on this high. As I said before, you're in these peaks and troughs.
Yeah.
And little did I know there's a little rock lying in wait in the middle of the road that I hit, and I flattened both tyres. Double puncture at about
same rock.
about 45 kilometers an hour. And yeah, it's really hard to control a bike. Loaded up as well at that speed, especially when you hadn't expected it or you had no idea what was going on. And so I crashed. Blood pouring everywhere out of my arm and hand. And I was like convinced that Bjorn was coming any second. I could hear some dogs barking in the distance. I was like, oh no, there's a rider coming. And I was like panickingly changing both the tubes out to get down.
Yeah. I remember watching you on the dot watching. Refresh, madly refreshing because you weren't going anywhere, and I was screaming at the laptop, as several of us were, but got through it. The future of this kind of racing, where do you see that? Having done the TCR a bunch of times now, whether it's not necessarily you doing it, but do you see there more of these things popping up? Do you see maybe the ones that are there refining? What do you think it's going to look like 3 or 4 years' time?
I think there will be more of them, and I think there'll be more people racing them, but with more knowledge, so they'll be much more competitive. I think there are some races which will kind of pop up and they'll grow in popularity and they'll die off, but there will be certain ones that remain, I think, as the kind of the kind of the standard for this sort of thing.
Mm.
But there's always risks with this sort of racing, and we've seen recently, with Michael's passing and various ones in the Trans-American bike race as well. It's that there's risks, and they may have an effect on whether these races can actually be run. Potentially, hopefully that wouldn't be the case. But
do you see yourself, if there are still races, are you there racing? I know you've got your Beam On Mike sticker on your top tube on your bike.
Yeah,
is that a driver for you to keep on doing that kind of stuff?
Yeah, for sure. Maybe not next year. Maybe next year. Who knows? But yeah, definitely. I mean, it's I get a certain buzz out of doing it. There's something I said a few times about riding your bike somewhere. It's pretty freeing. Like, you don't have to worry about anything. Back home, you can just focus on just riding somewhere. So.
If by some anomaly, an error with applying next year or whenever you want to TCR next, you can't get in, is there another one you look at and go, if I could get there, I could do that, and I could do that well? Anything else take your fancy?
I mean, pretty much all of them have a certain amount of appeal. Stuff like the North Cape Tarifa, which is probably the longest one there is. Mm-hmm. So it goes from the North Cape, Norway, down through to the Alps, and then across to Tarifa in Spain. Yeah. I think it's about 7,000 or 8,000 kilometres. It's a long way. Yeah. It's a fixed route, but the organisers put a really good route together. It's you wouldn't sort of be on a road and think, well, I don't want to be on here. But it's a fixed route, so I have to ride it. Yeah. There's a lot of kind of smaller back roads that are just much more pleasant to ride a lot of the times.
Yeah. I think from us, that's everything we wanted to chat about, to be honest, mate. Really, really useful insight. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Well done.
Thank you.
Second, mate. Well done. Top work.
Thank you very much.
Next year, first, though, please.
Yes.